We grab the lights, Dallas. Okay. So these are the first set of notes. So the second unit, we're using this nice brown paper. Okay, keep all your notes. So the first unit, we did it on yellow paper.
When did you turn those in?
When we took the test Tuesday. So, just a second. Once we start the homework. So, if you were not here Tuesday, you have a test to make up, quiz, test, whatever to make up. You also have the notes I checked for Unit 1. 10 easy points for writing stuff down. So, keep all your own notes. So, keep all the Unit 1, it was actually Unit 6, but keep all your yellow notes. And now we're going to do the second section in brown. So, what we're looking at in this section is polynomials. And it's similar to what we did last unit with monomials. You're using the same properties, except you have more than one term. So polynomial is an expression consisting, or I'll just put an expression, I don't know why I put an S, an expression with many terms. And a term is easy to identify because it's separated by plus or minus. So how you tell, and we'll talk about in a second, how you tell what your terms are, and it's whatever separated with the plus or minus. Okay, standard form. You need to write it in alphabetical order. So if you have multiple variables, make sure they're in alphabetical order. Write in alphabetical order. So write in alphabetical order. So that's the first thing you need to check for, which isn't that hard. X's come before Y's, A's come before B. And you start with your highest exponents. The highest exponents are first. And we'll talk more specifically about this in a second. So when it says write it in standard form, you always put it in alphabetical order, and you always start with the highest exponent first. Yep. And if I look at the example right underneath, you're going to see you can easily identify the terms because they're separated by plus or minus. So here, 2x to the third is a term, 5x squared is a term, minus 4x is a term, 7 is a term. So they are separated by plus or minus. Now the highest exponent has a special name, and that is called the degree. Okay, so the highest exponent you see in a polynomial is called the degree. Don't make it harder than it is. So the degree of this example is going to be what? 3. So the degree is 3. Okay, there will be hard stuff this semester. This is not one of those topics that should be that difficult. I understand if you get confused, but the actual math behind it, it's just kind of you need to know what degree means. You need to know blah, blah, blah.
Is that the exponent?
Highest exponent is the degree. So what we're going to do first is we are going to classify polynomials. Now, you will not have to have this chart memorized. I'll have it on the board when we take the test, either next week or the week after. Quiz, test, whatever. We have to classify it by the degree and the number of terms. Yes? No. So we have to classify it with degree and the number of terms. So the degree, remember, is the highest exponent. So you look at your highest exponent. That tells you how to classify it. And then number of terms is how many terms I have. So we use this chart to classify it. Okay? Now, if we go to a degree higher than 4, then you just say the nth degree. Nth. So, if the degree is 8, then it would be the 8th degree. If the degree was 10, we don't have a special name for it, so it's just the 10th degree.
So that'd be 6th degree?
Yep. Well, no, because that's not the degree.
That's horrible.
We'll look at a couple examples.
Nth degree.
Or number degree.
Okay.
Third.
So, if I look at a couple examples, so we want to classify the following polynomials by the degree and the number of terms. So if I look at number 1, I want to know what the degree is. Well, I want to know what is the highest exponent. Do I see any exponent with number 1? No, so my degree is 0.
So this is monomial. Right?
Okay? Yeah, my degree is 0 because there's no exponent. And when I say exponent, it has to be with the variable. I don't see a variable, so there's no exponent with the variable. So my exponent with my variable is 0. So it is a constant. And you can put monomial if you want to. So it's a constant monomial. You don't necessarily need to put monomial because the constant is always a monomial because it's just one number. But I wouldn't count it off. So this is a constant monomial because the degree is 0.
What if there's
Like when I refer to a constant, that's a number without a variable. So it's always one
Just
term.
a number without the exponents.
No, number without the variable.
I don't understand. So how is it number 3 a constant binomial?
No. Because if I look, let's look at number 3. If I look at number 3, we have to classify it by the degree first. What is the degree for number 3? What is the highest exponent on the variable?
No exponent.
1.
What?
Because there's no exponent with the x. There's an x, so we assume it's x to the first. If I look at number 1, there's not even x there. So that degree on the x is 0. But for number 3, it's x to the first. We assume it's a 1, so that degree is 1.
I get it now.
Okay? If the degree is 1, it is a linear. How many terms do you see for number 3? Terms are separated by plus or minus. How many terms? 1, 2. So it's a linear, 2-term, linear binomial. Again, you won't have to have these words memorized, just be able to use a chart like this. Okay, if I look at one like 4, first of all, the degree,
Is 4 so quadratic, right?
number 4, degree is second.
Quadratic.
Your highest exponent is 2, so the degree is 2, so it is a quadratic.
Quadratic trinomial.
Yep. So it's a quadratic, and then I have 3 terms. 1, 2, 3. So it's a quadratic trinomial. We'll do 6, that's fine. If I look at 6, the degree, what's the highest exponent on a variable? 4. The degree is 4. So that is a quartic. Degree is 4. That's a quartic. Okay. Now, how many terms do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4. I do not have a special name for 4, so you just use polynomial. So a quartic, polynomial. Now you could put with 4 terms if you wanted to. I don't really care, but what are you confused about? Okay.
This is kind of easy.
Number 2?
Number 3.
3. So the degree is 1 because there's x to no exponent, so it's a 1, right? So that's linear, and there's 2 terms, so it's a binomial. You good? Okay. Again, you will not have to have this table memorized, be able to use it. Okay, let's look at 7 through 12. Let's write them in standard form. So standard form, yes sir.
For number 6, the biggest exponent is 4.
What do you mean quadratic?
Quartic?
Q-U-A.
Because the degree is 4. That's the highest exponent, so the degree is 4. Okay.
Thinking quadratic?
You're good. Keep asking questions if you have them. Okay, 7 through 12. It doesn't want me to classify. It just wants me to put them in order. Standard form. So it has to be in alphabetical order, and you also have to start with the highest exponent. So if I look at 8, let's look at 8. If I look at my variables, they're all x's, so I don't have to worry about alphabetical order because they're all x's. Stop throwing stuff, please.
Yeah.
I was going to make it, sorry.
Yes.
How do you determine the degree?
It's always the highest exponent on your x. Yes. You're fine. You're good. It's better to ask than make mistakes in homework. Okay, let's look at 8. Okay, standard form. You want it in alphabetical order, which my only variable is x, so I don't have to worry about it. Start with your highest exponent. What is the highest exponent on number 8?
3.
X to the third. So we're going to start with the term that has x to the third. Listen up, guys. So to write it in standard form, you start with the term that has the highest exponent. So 7x cubed comes first.
Yeah. And then you do this.
What's the next highest one?
Plus x to the second.
Plus x squared. It's positive because there's no sign in front, so it's plus x squared. Just a second.
Plus 64.
The next highest would be the x to the first, so you could take the sign in front, minus x, plus 64.
Whoa.
Why does x come before 64?
Because this has x to the first, this would be x to the 0, because there's no x there.
Carter, you're so smart.
Your constant, listen up, guys. The number without an x, without a variable, always comes last. So that's constant is what it's called, will always come last.
Right.
Okay, let's look at one like 11.
Oh.
Okay, if I look at one like 11, we notice I have a's and b's mixed. So how you're going to write that, you're going to start with your
Double.
a first. Now, I'm not really too picky about the specific order with 11, but just to show you, we will start with the a first. That would be a cubed. Okay, now, we have a 2ab and a 5a squared b squared. You pick the one that has the highest exponent. So which one?
5a to the second, b to
Yeah.
the second.
So since they both have a and b's, you pick the one that has the highest exponent. So you listen up. Let me explain this, and then you can ask questions. So just let me explain this. You can ask questions. You start with the a to the third. Then I notice I have a's and b's together. You start with the one that has the highest exponents, which is a squared b squared. Now I have the 2ab, and then finally you put the b part, so minus 2b cubed.
Wait, so why is 5a2, b2 not 5a? I know.
Because you start with your single a first, and then you put the mix, and then you do your b. Now, I'm not super picky about this.
Oh, I get it.
So don't, like, if it's written like this, I'm not too picky that it has to be in this special order. But that's just kind of the way you'll see it written. So you do A's, and then the mixed, A's and B's, and then the B.
Oh, I forgot you had to do an alphabetical order.
Yes. Again, I'm not super picky about this special order, but just, we're not going to spend too much time on it. But okay. Let's go ahead and flip it to the next page.
Whatever.
Okay, let's flip it to the back. Okay. Adding and subtracting. Let's just get through the notes, and then you'll have some time to work on homework, so you can get done. Because I'm going to start collecting homework before the end of class. So. Okay, so adding and subtracting polynomials. Listen up, please. When you add or subtract polynomials, you add, basically you are combining. So another way to think about it is you are combining like terms. Okay? So you are doing kind of similar to what we did last unit, and you are combining coefficients that have the same variable and exponent. So you can put your x squares together. You can put your x cubes together. They have to have the exact same variable and exponent to add or subtract them. Now, look at example 1. Every year, when we do polynomials, I always have a couple students who screw this up and make their life a lot harder. As I look at example 1, I see parentheses, but what do I see in the middle?
Addition.
A plus. So you are not multiplying these. Just because you see two sets of parentheses, you have a big plus in the middle, so do not try to multiply these together. Every year I have that. Notice I have a big plus.
Yeah.
I am adding, listen up guys, I am adding two polynomials together, so we are going to combine like terms. Start with your highest exponent. What's the highest exponent I notice?
2x.
X
To the second.
squared.
I meant to say that.
So, as I look at the highest exponent, we're going to start with my x squared. So we put x squared, and then we are going to combine like terms. Negative 2 plus the 3.
1.
X
1
squared.
x squared.
Negative
So
x squared.
you look at your x squareds. I have a negative 2x squared plus a 3x squared. You add the coefficients, negative 2 plus 3, that's a 1, and then you keep the x squared. The next highest exponent I see is what? My x. So if you want to put an x, I have 18x minus 8x
10x.
plus 10x.
And
And then I have my coefficients, which are, just a second. I have my coefficients, which are my numbers without variables. 15 plus a negative 10, positive 5. So you are combining like terms. We're not multiplying. There's a big plus in the middle. So you're looking at your exponents and you're combining like terms.
Is that 1x or?
Yes, you don't really need the 1 there, but
I
yes.
thought it was one of those.
No, not absolute value. No, it was just 1x squared or just x squared. You don't need the 1 there. Okay, any questions on that?
No, can we do the example number 2?
Yeah, we're going to look at 2. Now, if I look at 2, again, you see parentheses, but what is in the middle between them? Minus. We are subtracting. So what I would do first is I would distribute the negative 1 through. So you're taking a negative 1 and you are distributing it through. So my first parenthesis stays the same, 6x squared plus 7x. When you are subtracting, I would distribute your negative through first, so that way you don't forget to take care of the negative. Negative times 10x.
Negative 10.
X. Negative times 3x squared. And then negative times 2. Negative 2. So only if you're subtracting do you have to distribute the negative through. Then you can start combining. What's the highest exponent?
X squared.
Okay, so if you want to put an x squared first, then look at your coefficient. 6 minus 3.
3.
3. If you want to cross them out once you combine them, I don't care. If it's easier for you if you cross them out, so it's easier to see what's left, I don't care. So I took care of my x squareds. Now I look at my x's. 7 minus 10. Negative 3x. And then the only thing I have left is minus 2, and that's your answer.
I lost my jaw.
Wait, well, I got a question.
Yes.
What? Why is it 3x squared?
Because 6 minus 3.
What?
Oh.
6 minus 3.
Where'd you get that?
Because I have to distribute the negative through.
What? I did not know that.
So when you are subtracting, you have to run the negative or distribute the negative through the second parentheses.
Dumb.
Forever.
And then you can start combining. Okay, I want to do a couple more on the bottom. Pick a couple more. Give me one you want to do.
Let's go with 5.
Let's look at,
5.
let's do 5 real quick. Let's look at 5.
12 and 14. We need to do 14.
Let's look at 5. So if I look at 5, okay, again, I have parentheses, but there's a big minus in between them. So since there's a big minus, that means I'm going to subtract. Guys, keep your head up, please.
Gotta keep
Okay.
your head up.
So, 5, I'm subtracting. Anytime you're subtracting, take your negative and distribute it through first.
Oh, you can do that?
And then combine them. So my first parenthesis, x squared plus 6x minus 4, stays there. My second part will look like what?
Same thing.
Negative x squared
Yep,
minus 6x
yep,
plus 4.
yep. So once you do that, then you can just start putting things together. Let's start with my x squared. X minus x squared.
1. I'm sorry. Is that wrong?
What's x minus x squared?
I don't know.
What's 2 minus 2?
No.
0. So the same thing minus the same thing is 0. It's gone. Okay? So anytime you have the exact same thing minus the exact same thing, it cancels out as 0. So there's nothing left. If I look at my x's, 6x minus 6x. Nothing again. Same thing minus the exact same thing is gone. Negative 4 plus 4. Nothing. So those all cancel, so that would just give me 0.
Wow. Wow, what an answer. Wow.
So 5, everything canceled out. So that just gave you 0.
And that gives you E, boy.
I'm not worrying about that part.
Alright,
but-
whatever.
Okay, let's look at 16. Okay, we have words on this one. We did one like this last unit. We are subtracting 6x squared plus 8x minus 6 from 7x squared plus 8x minus 4. What's the correct order that I write these if I am subtracting the first one from the second one?
Remember we are.
Okay, so like we did last unit, if I am subtracting the 6x squared from the 7x squared, the 7x squared one comes first. So 7x squared plus 8x minus 4, and I am subtracting the other one from that. So minus 6x squared plus 8x minus 6. So I am taking, go ahead.
Is it, you put 7 because 7's always greater than 6, right? So you go with the exponent?
Not necessarily. The reason you have to look at the way it reads. I'm subtracting something from the 7x squared one. So since I'm subtracting this away from that, this one comes first. Does that make sense? Okay. Yes, the wording's tricky with this.
I just thought you meant like pick the exponent that has the highest like base number.
No, that's not. You have to read it. If you're subtracting something from something, it goes on the end. Okay, now let's go ahead and distribute the negative first.
Hey.
So the first one, say 7x squared plus 8x minus 4. When I distribute that negative, that will become a what?
Negative 6x squared minus 8x plus 6.
Negative 8x plus 6.
Exactly what I said.
Okay, so when you distribute the negative, basically you're changing the sign. So it becomes a negative 6x squared minus 8x plus 6. And let's start combining. Start with your highest exponent, which is what?
6x, negative 6.
X squared. What's 7 minus 6? 1x squared.
Yeah.
Or just x squared, and you could cross them out when they're done. The next one will be
X.
8x
Yeah.
minus 8x. Nothing, it cancels because it's the exact same thing. Negative 4 plus 6
2.
plus 2.
Oh, yeah.
Guys,
Better start swinging hands on them, Kelly.
Who's throwing hands?
stop. You guys aren't paying attention.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you weren't looking at the screen, so.
I'm not.
Because we don't agree to them.
Okay, so any questions on adding and subtracting?
No.
Okay. So let me pass out the homework. The homework will be due at the end of the block, so I will not accept it after because I'm tired of seeing zeros in the grade book. Because there's no reason for that.
This is the color I remember. This is the color I remember.